Reichman University.
The Baseline. Stories from the court with Jonathan Rears and Mayor Cohen.
So we're here today. Jared Armstrong, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks for having me.
So we've got a unique opportunity. We've interviewed a lot of athletes here in the Baseline. This is season 2, episode 6.
Yeah.
So we're really pumping them out at this point, which is great. It's fun for us to be able to do this. This new season's been great. A lot of good interviews coming out and more to come. But what makes this opportunity special is our guest today is someone who is not only incredibly accomplished at what he's done in his own community, but also other communities around the world. It's very impressive for us to see kind of the separation between athletes and understanding what impact they can have. So we talked to a lot of athletes, and they love to tell us, wow, it's nice to see the kids and be there for the kids. But to really do what you're doing is very impressive to us and the people we've interviewed. So first of all, Kolokov, like amazing stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about, we really want to know everything. We want to hear all about your journey. But initially, we like to start at the very beginning, which is just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you started to see basketball as something that you wanted to make your career and branch out from that.
Yeah, I mean, it started since I was a baby. When I was a baby, my brother played college football at Hofstra University before their team closed down, and he put a basketball in my hand. And ever since the age of 3, I grew up in Severn, Maryland. So I grew up basically on a street called Battlement Court, and I'll talk later about what it kind of symbolizes to me. But I lived in a cul-de-sac, so since the age of 3, my mom actually just got inducted into the Philly Hall of Fame for basketball.
Amazing.
And, she was kind of my driver, my pusher. She taught me how to shoot, taught me how to play, and ever since 3, it's kind of just basketball has been my world. And, I think as I got older, I saw, the opportunities it can give you, where it can take you all across the world, including here, the Holy Land, and, how it can help you inspire others and be a difference maker.
That's amazing. It seriously is. So what the research that I've done from listening to other podcasts that you've been on is really understanding where you're from, the challenges that come along the way. So we can be on the subject however long you'd like, but
sure.
I really would like to know how your identity as someone who's Jewish coming here to Israel. I know there was a lot of issues with making that happen. So however deep you want to go into it, just tell us a little bit about that process, maybe playing in university, making the decision that you want to come here, and some of those hardships actually making that a feasible reality.
Yeah, I mean, basically I grew up really very strict. I would say my first 12 years, like Friday night, no electricity. Saturday was, really Shabbat, couldn't do anything, couldn't even play sports. And then as I grew up, my parents got divorced when I was 12. So, we became more secular, and, they saw me actually be a chance to be a good basketball player. So they was like, if you want to, play, you have to play on Saturdays. Plus, I was going to practice every week and I couldn't play in the game. So I'm like, what's the point of you paying all this money if I can't contribute to my team and help them, play? So as I got older, I ended up going to Slippery Rock University. I've never been personally a spiritual guy. I believe in God, but, I always believed that, you kind of show, who you are, and that's the way that you can kind of make an impact. We're just being a person that just say, yeah, I'm religious, I believe in God, and don't do anything to impact the world. I kind of just am very action-based. And, I used to tell my grandma when I was little, who's very observant, like to this day, and I used to tell her, like, listen, the Torah is just a book of stories. Like, I don't believe people live till they're 400, like, whatever. She'd be like, yo, you're crazy. So, I went through college, and then I graduated during COVID, so it was weird times. And I told my agent basically I was Jewish, and I had a Jewish agent, American agent at the time, and he was kind of shocked. So then we went through the process, and we just had a bunch of hurdles. But I'll say one story that I never really, talked about. When I was going through my process, a lot of people don't know this. I lived in a hostel in Tel Aviv with 12 other people in a room. And it really taught me a lot about myself, a lot about adversity, and just, how my story kind of inspired millions of people that I didn't have no clue who it could inspire and what it can be. I just felt, it was my right to be here and, be a person that not only do this for myself, but for my family and for my kids if they ever want to come to Israel. So I remember sitting in a hostel. I'm like, really like on my last leg as far as hope, like, is this going to work? If not, what I'm going to do? And I made a tweet that day, and it was like, basically, I'm going to play basketball again. That was like basically the goal of the tweet. Like, I know God's putting me through something tough right now, but like, I'm going to play basketball again, and I believe that day is going to happen. And I'll be able to show it in the clip later. But basically, I made that tweet. I met a really mensch guy named Joey Lowe who fought with me. He actually a person that helped me stay in Israel. His name is actually on a few of these buildings at Reichman University, wow. The Lowe family. And he was a person that believed in me. I met him the first time. He helped me stay in Israel. And since then, we accomplished a goal, what we felt was the right decision for me was to make Aliyah. And, I've been here ever since. Also, another story, I was playing in Hapoel Haifa when the original team I signed with on a 3-year deal. And I remember they told me, like, yo, I got to get out the apartment. I got kicked out of the apartment. I got to live in Tel Aviv. I'm fresh out of college, so I really didn't have any money. And I remember going to the Western Wall, and I put 3 things in the wall. The first thing I put was to make Aliyah, and that wish came true.
That's awesome.
Wow. So
take us through your journey, like, what made you decide to go to Slippery Rock? I did see that you had some Big 10, Big 12, ACC interest.
Yeah.
So what kind of pivoted you to go there?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a prep school after high school called Mount Zion Prep. Now they're like number 2 in the country. When I was there, we were number 5 in the country. We have like the best school record at 30-5. All my teammates, I would say 8 out of 12 of us went to Division I, Central Florida, wow. Seton Hall, USF, Siena. Like we were beating teams by 50. Like we just had a special group of guys. And then when I was playing, I had really good grades. So I picked up like Wisconsin. I picked up, Iowa. A friend of mine, he had played for Coach McCaffrey at Siena, and they were looking for a point guard. And then a friend of mine, when I picked up interest from K-State, was Kamal Stokes, who was the point guard when they went to the Elite Eight the year before. But many people don't know, and I didn't even know till I was 16, I was born with a foot impairment called tarsal coalition. So it's when 2 bones in your foot are basically plowed together. So it's like basically bone on bone, and you don't recognize it until you're 15, 16, 17 years old. Me personally, I just waited. I feel like it was just the wrong situation for me to wait, but I also believe everything happens for a reason. So when I was going through the process, I was post-surgery. K-State wanted me to come take a visit. This was the year where NCAA was allowed every 4 years for you to go on an international trip. So they were going to Italy, and I just wasn't ready. Like I just wasn't ready. I wasn't going to be ready to August or September, and they wanted me to be ready by July. Be at summer school session. So that was just an opportunity that I missed. But I just think it was just God putting me in another direction that I still accomplished the same goal I always wanted to as a child.
That's amazing. So then after school, you said you talked to your agent, said that you're Jewish. You guys were surprised. Yeah. So once you said you were Jewish, did he kind of think like, oh, let's go to Israel?
Yeah, he just felt like with everything that was going on with the market, it was COVID. I'm coming from a small school, being a place in a country that you can go get dual citizenship, immediately. That's what we were thinking originally. Like that would be a great opportunity. Obviously, Israel is a respectable country, for basketball. So, and then we just started the process. Obviously, we all know kind of what happened, the trips and hurdles that I went through. But, a year and a half later, I was able to come on top, and, I've been here ever since.
That's awesome. Wow.
That's really amazing. I mean, every person we speak to has their own journey, and that's kind of the point of what we want to do here is we want to have everybody come in and just understand how different each person's journey is, that they're here. And whether it was Itai, who was here last week, or the other day was telling us about playing abroad and getting hurt, it was out for 6 months. And so knowing this about yourself, I mean, I feel like we're going to jump around a lot because it's kind of what we do. So, we understand that you're going through this injury now. So how exactly are you mentally handling this right now, especially knowing that you had this injury as early on in your career? And maybe that helped you in some ways to understand what you need to do to recover and what that path might look like. But just for people who are listening that might be struggling with something similar, how are you doing and how are you moving through this injury?
Yeah, I mean, originally when it first happened, obviously you're upset and, injuries are tough for anybody just mentally and physically. I never had actually got injured. I was just born with an impairment. So this was actually my first time having an injury, breaking my fibula. And
Did that have anything to do with it?
no, it's actually my right foot. So it's my left foot that I was born with an impairment. My right foot that I broke my fibula. But I mean, originally I was just upset, and like I said, I'm a firm believer that everything in life happens for a reason. And, for me, I can always cry and say, this is terrible. But, what I try to do is really just see the good in every situation. And that's kind of how I live my life. So it's like, what is God trying to teach me in this moment? That's what I kind of believe and live by. And, that's what when I talk to kids, is like, whatever you're going through in life, there's always a good. It's just up to you to see it and to find what that good is. Everybody has their adversity in life, but most of the time from that adversity, you come out as a better person or a better man or a better
Definitely.
woman. So for me, that's kind of where I'm at in my career with my injury, is just day by day, brick by brick. I just went to the hospital, I would say 2 weeks ago. And the biggest take I took was from my doctor. He was like, man, you got 6 weeks to get your mobility in your foot back. That's it. After your 6 weeks, it's going to be very hard. So that means every day from forward, every day matters. And it's kind of the same thing that I look in life. Every day in life matters. Are you getting better today? If not, we're wasting time. So
What are you doing? Yeah.
my point with this scenario is just every day with my foot, I got to get better. Every day in life, I got to get better in some capacity or some way. So it's just the correlation that I see, and that's how I kind of live my life going forward.
It's awesome. And when you had that year and a half of trying to get the citizenship, I saw that you created the Who Would Have Thought LLC. So what inspired you to create that? Can you tell us more?
I always loved kids. I always loved working with kids. And when I graduated college, I had a little bit of a gap. And I come from two hardworking families. My dad was a Navy corpsman. My mom works as a contractor for the government and was a big real estate agent when we were living in Maryland. So she was like, hey, you got to get a job. Like, I don't care if it's COVID or not. You got to pay bills. So she was like, you love basketball. You're always in the gym. Like, why won't you make a business out of it? So luckily, across the street from my house was a church. And the church had a school in the Philadelphia area. It's called a POW, which is like a community rec center. And at the time it was COVID, so everything was closed down. So I just happened to just like ask the pastor of the church, the priest, I'm sorry, can I use the gym? And he was like, yeah, why not? And literally I started with one kid, a really close friend of mine, his son, who was like a beginner at basketball. Now he's like one of the top sixth graders in the Philadelphia area. So
No way.
Crazy to see. And one turned into two turned into 10 turned into 30, and it just continued to triple. So I think that just kids, cater to me. I'm young. I can relate to them. And ever since then, I've been able to train, Division I basketball players. One of the players I trained ended up winning Rookie of the Year his freshman year at Fairleigh Dickinson University.
Wow.
I have Division I, Division II, Division III clients. So, it's just something I live by. It's just I'm bigger than just a basketball player, but, I'm able to help the next generation and help guide them.
Is this something that you want to take up after your career?
I don't know. I mean, I get poked in so many different ways. I'm actually trying to figure out now if I have the capacity to even do it this summer, just with all our summer program and everything. So I love working with, high-level guys, pushing them, getting them better, and obviously playing at the pro level. They get to learn things that I see that other guys or other trainers may not have been able to do throughout their career. So, I love working with them and pushing them to be the best players they can be.
That's amazing. Can I ask, when you're doing these camps, how do you toe the line between mentorship and just actually focusing on basketball? So yeah, I've seen you're an amazing public speaker, and obviously how you're speaking right now. I mean, I see how you're able to do this, and you're able to inspire kids and not only teach them, but also maybe teach them things that aren't about basketball. So how do you toe that line? Meaning, you want to help these kids get better at basketball, but you also want them to be better people, and you want to teach them lessons. And so what are some of the things you do with the kids you work with that maybe do a little bit of both? Are the kids there to learn basketball, but he's not understanding that he or she is there and is also learning how to be a better person? And what are some things that you're doing with these kids that you're doing on purpose to instill better values in them, or hardworking values, or what are some of those things?
I mean, the biggest thing is pushing them outside their comfort zone. I think a lot of kids don't know how far they can go. Personally, just being an athlete myself, and that's just comes with part of the game. So, I mean, like some of my first clients I had, after every workout, they would have to run suicides. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to run 10 suicides when they're tired.
10 and 10.
Yeah, So pushing them out their comfort zone lets them know they can do more. And when they can do more, they get so much better than they thought they would be. So, when I push them outside their comfort zone, it's no different if someone puts you out your comfort zone in life, being a better student, being a better person, being a better human, So that's my messaging is like everything that you're doing in basketball correlates to what you're going to go through in life. There are going to be times that you study for a test and you fail. What you got to do? Study harder. And what does that take? Time. What's the sacrifices that you have to make for that? Less friends, less parties. All the things that I tell kids is basically write down your goals and then write down the sacrifices you want to make and cross them out if you're willing to do it. If not, this is not the goal for you, and that has nothing to do with basketball. It just has to do with life and where you're trying to go. If I speak to kids and I say, how many of you want to be rich? Everybody's going to raise their hand. And I say, how many of you guys are willing to sacrifice family time, friends, parties? A lot of those hands go down, So I think it's just a sacrifice you have to make and, the goals that you want to reach. So I think just goal setting and that mentality just talks about life and not just basketball.
It's very well said. Is there someone that when you were a kid was feeding you this?
No, I think my parents did a great job. Really just on my mom's side. Every day after when I was in middle school specifically, we would make 500 shots a day.
Wow.
So we would go from middle school practice. My dad, like I said, was in the Navy, so we had a military base about 30 minutes from my house. We would go to the military base, just me and my mom. She would rebound till we made 500 shots.
Wow.
3-pointers, pull-ups, mid-range, every day. And I just think that work ethic of, you have to do extra to be better, and also me being, I'm under 6 foot, so, you have to have that extra edge. I think that really instilled the hard work in me, and I just always been a gym rat. I always been a guy that, believe like no matter what somebody says, you can always beat the odds. We hear so many, underdog story, and I think that's the beauty of the David and Goliath is, that underdog that, someone said they can't do it, and then they go exceed and excel. So I just always had that mentality, and I think that's stuck with me through my entire career, and just not just with basketball, but just other avenues that I've, encountered in life.
That's amazing. What's it like to watch these people succeed? That you like the person you mentioned is an absolute beginner in basketball is now one of the best for their age group.
Yeah.
So what's that like for you?
I think for me it puts a smile on my face. It doesn't, because I know in life he's going to be better. I'm sure like when I talk to him, like one of the stories we had, he used to literally come into the gym and sit down and say, I'm not doing anything today. I hate basketball. Like, I'm only here because my dad dropped me off. I need extracurricular activity. Like, that's the only reason I'm here. And to watch him 5 years later, love basketball in the gym every day for 2 hours, that's his mental strength and capacity that got better and stronger. He couldn't make a left-hand layup. He would never be able to make. Now he's making left-hand layup, contested with contact, finishing. That's just things of his, charisma that he gained from the perseverance, He used to cry when we worked out. Now he fell in love with the game. And
what are you saying to him when like he's coming in and he's like, I don't want to play, I don't want to do this? How do you go about that workout?
Depends. Sometimes it's psychological. I'll say, you're a quitter. He'll say, no. So why are you quitting?
Yeah.
You're here to do a job. The job is to be here for an hour. I'm only taking an hour of your day. You only have to come to work for an hour. Your dad goes to work for 8. So I just try to, what I call keep it real with them. Like, your dad works every day for 8 hours to sacrifice to pay me for you to come and be better at basketball and to be better at life. Like, you're literally sitting here complaining. Like, you have 2 parents that work hard for you to be able to accomplish your goals and your dreams. There's a lot of kids that don't have that. And, I think when you put in those perspectives for kids, a lot of kids take that time for granted and that, energy for granted. And for me, it's just like, don't waste my time because I don't have to be here. I got a million other things that I could do. So if you don't want to be here, okay, cool, I'll walk out. You tell your dad, call your dad, tell him to come get you, and we can shake hands, no problem, and move on. And a lot of kids after that, they understand, the importance of time and money and energy, and they respect that, So for me, it's just always keeping it real with them and being transparent because I tell them, like, time is not for granted. You don't get this hour back. This hour you're wasting, life doesn't wait for you. So that's how I try to put it to them, make them understand that everything in life matters. And that's what I think is
It's
important.
definitely a privilege
Yeah.
to do that.
Do you think maybe your approach to do this and the way that you think about that are a bit reflective of like how you were raised and how maybe some of the Jewish values that you have? How do you think that's kind of shaped the way that you like coach or the way that you mentor people?
I would say for me, like the injuries I occurred, like the injury now is just, I always was a time guy. I was always on time. I also went to military school. So I went to Fort Union Military Academy my senior year. We had to wake up at 6 o'clock in March to breakfast. I mean, most kids wake up 6 o'clock and go downstairs and eat breakfast with their parents, So for me, like I'm always on time. You saw me joking with Daniel earlier, like you're late and stuff like that. But for me, like time is everything, because that's one thing we don't get. We can get money back. We may lose family members, but we still may have family. But for me, one thing that we can never get back, like this interview, we never get this back. We'll never get 1709 back. So for me, time is everything, and I try to instill that in kids at an early age, because they have to realize, like, I remember being 20, like it was yesterday. I'm 28 years old, and I think kids take time for granted. They say, oh, I'm only 11, oh, I'm only 12, but in a snap of finger, you're going to be 25. And you're like, damn, my biggest thing is I hate to hear someone say, I wish I could have did this, or I wish I had more time, because those are things that are controllable, So that's the thing I just try to preach to them, is just control the controllables.
There's no doubt. And then kind of a shift. I did see that you went on a CBS Philly interview talking about Israel. So as a basketball player playing in Israel, what kind of perspective do you kind of show the world who gets that media from the West and will see a bunch of different things? How do you kind of give them your own perspective about what's going on here?
I mean, for me, I just try to keep it real, like I said. I'm just very transparent on what's going on. My dad was just here for 2 weeks taking care of me. And I literally, before he asked, told him like, yeah, so when you go back to Philly and you go back to your family and friends, like, tell them the real. Tell them what you see. You was able to walk down the street late at night. You didn't hear any rockets or sirens, at least where I was at, any lot. Like, you felt safe. You felt comfortable. The food was good. You saw beautiful women. So, for me, it's like, keep it real. And that's what I just try to do. I just try to be very transparent with people. I mean, listen, I live in Philadelphia. So, that's one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Kids that die every day at 15, that some of them don't even make the news. So for me, it's just about being transparent, keeping it real. And I just try to, tell people to be a human, like, especially when the war first broke out and I saw so many people that were, praising, innocent people that were dead. My message to them was, if your son or daughter was killed or kidnapped, would you want your country to abandon them? So many people said, oh, they shouldn't go get after the hostages or anything like that. It's like, okay, so if your son was in America and someone kidnapped them and took them to Al-Qaeda, you wouldn't want America to go get them? You want them to stay home and, say, oh, that kid's not important? So it's the same thing here. I think a lot of people just looked at the genre of people or the group of people that was marginalized, which is the Jewish people, and said, oh, they're irrelevant. Instead of just being a human and just being a good human and saying, hey, listen, nobody innocent, and that's my message, nobody innocent deserves to die, and every child deserves to grow up. So, if you don't agree with that, then it's not really in a conversation to have.
Totally understand. I mean, for you and the ability to be kind of with the platform that you have, just to speak to people and some of the content that you've created in regards to that. So as I mentioned before we started recording, just how that was incredibly interesting to me. And I saw some of those videos that you had posted right when the war came out. I remember seeing that from an athlete's perspective and seeing the video of you leaving Ashkelon when the whole city was smoking. So from my perspective, your voice is incredibly valuable, and it's really interesting to hear your perspective on it. And I would love to talk about that for an hour, but there's so much that I want to talk about with you. And I also want to talk about what the transition was like at the end of the day. I mean, we love to hear everyone's stories, but we want to know the transitions from playing basketball in college in America and then coming here and maybe your first kind of interaction with the Israeli game and what that was like for you and what that culture change was like.
I wouldn't say for me it was really a culture change. I would say definitely an adjustment. I think it was for me really just getting comfortable. It wasn't really adjustment as the style of play, because I feel like for me I consider myself more so just a high IQ player. I'm not super athletic. I'm not jumping out the gym. So I more so think the game. So I think it was really just me getting comfortable with the game of basketball here and the style and being comfortable in my own skin and being able to play free. So that I feel for me, was the biggest adjustment. And I feel like, this was a year that I really was going to show that, obviously, with the injury. But that was my biggest adjustment, I feel like, was just being comfortable and being there and being myself.
That's awesome. You definitely, I watched a lot of your highlights today, and you definitely have a lot of moves where it's just like, it's the same thing. Like, you got it down. Just like you said, it's a mental game. See you, like, coming out of the pick and roll, get to that, like, middle spot of the free throw line. That midi, like, I think I saw 10. You could have told me it was the same play.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's down like that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a small guard. You got to be able to shoot. I teach that to every player I work with. You got to be able to shoot the mid-range game at my height. I'm not going in there with 7-footers. My shot's going to get blocked. So, I got to be able to do things that others don't do at a consistent and high level, which is be able to shoot threes. I think last year I shot 45% from the three, and this year I was on a good start. So it was really just being able to shoot at a high level, think at a high level, and, the rest of the game will take care of itself, and also try to be a pest on defense.
Did you have a little bit of a difference in the game? Definitely high IQ player coming from D1 to D2 in the Israeli league?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different style of game for sure. It's less talent on the floor. So you have 2 Americans compared to in the first league you have 4.
Right.
So you got to think way more. It's more Israelis on the floor. No discredit to them, but, obviously people consider Americans better than Israelis. So for me, it was just more so being able to cater to my teammates, how to keep them happy as a point guard, but also being able to, contribute in my way of scoring or passing, and also being able to cater to the Americans who are normally the leaders and the alphas of the team. So,
have you noticed since you've gotten here that kind of the level of the Israeli players has gotten better?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think it's going to continue to get better. I think there's a lot of trainers on the rise in Israel. Shout out to my guy, Gal Tesler. We're actually doing a clinic together who runs Target and trains a lot of the top guys here in Israel. But I think it's going to get better. And as you see, I think the game is just globalizing. Basketball is just everywhere nowadays. I mean, I just read 2 days ago that the NBA and FIBA might come together and create their own league.
Yeah.
So, I think the game has become more global. I think half the NBA now is from international players. And if you look at the MVP, the last 3 MVPs were international players. So I think the game is just getting better and better. More kids are more hungry. And I think, the European style is kind of taking over the American way just because kids are more hungry. I tell kids in America all the time, like, there's kids in Israel that's playing outside at 10 a.m. in the morning when it's hot as hell in the summer, not complaining, don't have water, shirt off, and just getting to work. And you guys are complaining that there's no AC and you're inside a gym with a wood floor. So I think just the mentality of the players are changing. More American players are just too bougie, and there's European players that don't care where they play at, excuse me, and they just want to be a dog and want to make it to America. I remember my first year when I was living in a hostel, I was training with Gal from Target, and I remember asking the kids, like, what's your goal? And they were like, where are you from? And I'll tell them I'm from America. And their eyes would lit up. And their eyes would be like it's like you can tell, like, yo, that's where I'm trying to go. Like, that's my dream. And they go every day and work their ass off, So you see that, and then you see that you go to American, you go back home, and, like, these kids are hungry. Like, they're privileged. So I think personally you just see that dynamic changing. Also the style of system, In America, basketball is played more so in tournaments. You have teams that play 10 tournaments a summer, so you don't really get the opportunity to work on your game. You're just going from tournament to tournament to tournament, where in Europe, you practice 6 days a week and you have one game. So you're getting more player development strategy, and now, you see more injuries rise. How are we in 2024? And there's more injury where there's more science, but more people are getting injured every other day. So I think just the game is flipped. And that's why you see more European players in the league.
Yeah, and we've talked about this throughout the episodes on the pod, is that, like, watching EuroLeague, just, like, the highest level in Europe, and watching the NBA, I would say regular season, if you have a Maccabi Tel Aviv against Monaco, and you have, like, Bucks Celtics, even though I'm a Celtics fan, I probably would want to watch the Maccabi Tel Aviv game, because it's just way more intense. The fans are way more in it. The game is at a way higher intensity throughout the game. First, second quarter, I feel like you don't even have to watch in the NBA anymore.
For sure. I mean, I think the NBA is entertainment. I mean, I think obviously recently I read that viewership went down, but it's all because of analytics. It's either threes or layups, so
Right.
you're watching basically a bunch of the same players run up and down the court outside the All-Stars, shoot threes or shoot layups. It's no creativity anymore in the NBA. They consider the mid-range a bad shot, but if you look at the greatest players of all time, Michael Jordan probably being one, and Kobe and others, they all had a mid-range shot. But
Definitely.
you're telling kids nowadays that a mid-range shot is terrible and that you should only drive for layups or shoot threes. So, I think this NBA is very systematic, and I think that's why the viewerships are down, because it's just no creativity. It's not really valued. Even if you ask college coaches, it's not really valued until the playoffs. Nobody plays defense. So.
Right.
All right. You wouldn't watch Bucks Celtics? Maybe Bucks Hornets or something. I feel like if it's Bucks Celtics, you're going to watch.
Bucks Celtics
We'd have
regular
money on the game
season.
if it was Bucks Celtics.
If we have money on the game, then we'd watch that. But
Okay, not the point. When we spoke to Itai last week, I mean, yeah, he
Right.
said that strategy is like the way he in his words, he's like, wow, in Israel, the Jewish mind thinks about it in a certain way that he feels that there's so much more strategy involved in the
more
games.
calculated.
And the calculated and the coaching here is totally different. So another thing that I've like to ask is, where's your favorite place that you've played here in Israel? I mean, do you have a favorite coach, or do you feel that, comparatively, that in the U.S., the coaching staff, the training facilities is something that I like to ask people coming in, like where has been great places to play? And if you don't have those two things, how seriously does it impact your game?
Yeah, I mean, I think easily, I had 6 coaches since I've been here in 3 years. My favorite coach is, unfortunately, I'm not playing, but my favorite coach is the coach I have now, Daniel Goot. Reason being, I think just we kind of have the same mentality. Like, we come into the gym, all he cares about is the team getting better every day. And he just has these words that really stuck with me from day one being Kaizen, one being Meijin. Kaizen meaning it's a Chinese word that basically means like focus on getting better and getting better each and every day, basically brick by brick. And Meijing means mastering your role. In every team, everybody has a role, and the better you add at your role, the better the team will be. So I think just his mentality and his focus as not only just being our coach, but as a person, makes him a great coach, and really players want to play for him, especially like myself. But, I think that's been my favorite coach since I've been in Israel. Kudos to him, but I really respect his mentality because, like I said, it doesn't just correlate into basketball, it correlates to life. He's the first coach I had in Israel where every day we have to make 150 shots, per day. We have to be in the gym every day, getting up shots and getting better. So he really just pushes you outside of your comfort zone. And really tries to make you compete at a high level. And that's one thing that I really appreciate. And I really like because you have so many coaches, not naming any names, but you have coaches that, come in, do their job and go home, and they're not focused. When I first signed with Hapoel Eilat, it was 2 things he told me. We want to win a championship, and my goal for you is to either stay with us or be in a better financial situation. And a lot of coaches don't say that over the phone. His care is for you to be in a better situation, not for him to be better, for you to be better when we're done the season. So I think that's really, important, and it tells you a lot about him as a person.
it's awesome.
Totally. I mean, that's kind of like the college coach mentality in a sense. Like, I don't know now how it's done with NIL, but, in the past, it's like that personal relationship you have with your coach is everything. And the kids want to play for the coach. And when that isn't a factor, I think you see a lot of the times teams falling apart or teams not being as glued together because it's just so important when the coach is such a leader and such a mentor for everybody, and they can come together.
No, for sure. I think that's why we see where Colorado football's at.
Yeah.
We see that everybody
Deion.
loves Deion Sanders and what he's doing, and his mentality, is the same of just getting better every day, just pushing you to be different, being out of your comfort zone. And he doesn't care about talent. He wants dogs. He wants people on the field that, has good character, but at the end of the day, they're going to run through a wall for him. And I think that's a big separator from him and probably a lot of other college coaches. I personally don't watch college football, but recently watching his show, the thing that stuck out to me about him was, he said he's failed if a person comes through Colorado and they're not a better man when they left. And I think that's very important.
For sure. I think when a coach projects something, that's going to reflect on your team, and that's exactly what's happening there.
For sure.
I think we should wrap up with the shot clock.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the time. I mean, it's been a long time. We try to keep these episodes between 30, 40 minutes, but there's a lot on the table to talk about with you. And I appreciate how well spoken you are, how you're able to really articulate and all these things. And it's inspiring. Everybody has their own journey, of course, and we know. And as you've said, some people we've spoken to on this podcast have had it easier, and they've had everything kind of set up, and they knew the right person, and they're able to go to a great college, and they have the next step. But a lot of our guests also haven't had that, and it's how each one of them is able to adapt, and how each one of them is able to make the best of the situation they're in. So thank you. I mean, it's very inspiring. So
we finish up with 24 seconds rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Just one word answers.
Was our record set? I feel like every time we ask what the record is.
It's 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you
we need like
a
a buzzer or like a big camera or something
Yeah, right.
to make it look better. All
All
right.
right, so we'll go 2 and 2.
Okay.
Um,
Wait. So we preface. We like quality answers because we had some guys just throwing some words out there. So we got to get some good answers. But so let's hear them, John.
24 seconds is going on the clock. All right. Favorite basketball player of all time.
Kobe Bryant.
Go-to pregame hype song.
Little Dirk, Turn Up a Notch.
One-on-one, any player ever. Who?
Kobe.
Best arena you've ever played in.
Best arena I ever played in, Maccabi Rishon.
Favorite basketball movie.
Like Mike.
Who has the best handles in the Winter League right now?
That's tough. That's tough.
Steal or alley-oop?
Ramadan. Steal.
All right, there you go.
There you go. So we're gonna wrap up. Thank you very much for coming in. We
Thanks for
appreciate
sharing your
insights.
story. Appreciate it.
And we'll include afterwards. We'll do a segment to make sure we get all the socials and everything. You can follow
sure.
the website as well. But again, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it, and best of luck with the recovery, and best of luck moving forward.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
so much for having me.